All right, hello, Honors 410, and welcome to Aliens, Ghosts, and Wizards. I'm really excited to teach this class, to address the elephant in the room. I was really hoping this would be an in-person class, like I think most of us probably were. The public health situation is what it is. I hope you all are staying safe and healthy, or as much as can be expected under our current circumstances, and I hope we all will return to kind of the world closer to normal sooner than later. But in the meantime, though, I consider the topics that we're looking at in this class kind of these more speculative elements, more supernatural, kind of magical elements. One of the ways in which I think they're valuable to us is as a mode of escapism. And that's not to say that we should bury our head in the sand and ignore current events. I think inevitably some elements of current events are probably going to seep into our discussions over the course of these next weeks together. But nonetheless, I think there is some value too in kind of just going to these things. Some of these more speculative elements like aliens, ghosts, and wizards are things that I think many of us are drawn to in our younger years. And so it can be fun to return to these things and see kind of, how our perception of them may have changed over time. But then also, as the course description kind of lays out that I imagine most of you read, at least back when you were registering for this class, I do think that there's real value in what a more magical or more kind of story that invites us to suspend our disbelief, what kind of perspective that can offer us on the world that we do know, and how that might offer commentary and how that might maybe make us think about or talk about things that we wouldn't ordinarily address in a day-to-day situation. So I hope this class will be enjoyable for most of us. This video today is going to be, I think, probably one of the less exciting ones. I'm going to spend a good portion of it just kind of going over our syllabus. I do feel like just like a normal in-person class, that's an important thing to do just to kind of, let you all know what you're in for. Hopefully most of you read through the preview email that I had sent out, as well as the syllabus draft that I sent out at that point. Very little has changed since that draft. I got cleaned up by a small handful of typos that stuck out to me afterwards, but the core content of it has pretty much stayed the same. But I'll go through the syllabus and discuss some points in more detail in this video, and also address a small handful of other odds and ends. So first off, to lead us off though, I was going to invite you all to leave a comment in this discussion thread, and I'll talk more about the discussion threads a little bit later on and my expectations for them. But in your comments, I encourage you at minimum just to introduce yourself. So I know the name that you prefer to go by might not exactly match what you see on the screen there in terms of you just post your legal name by default in Canvas. So, just introducing yourself, what you like to be called, if you have, pronouns you'd like to introduce to us. So, for example, I identify as he, him, his. If you'd like to, share that information, I think we'd all appreciate that. But again, just your name. And then to add on, this is sort of by way of icebreaker, sort of by way of just kind of starting some of our discussions and getting a sense of where we're all coming from. If you'd like to add in a little bit of either your favorite or one of your most recently consumed examples, I'm going to call it of genre or genre-adjacent media. And so please don't stress over this if you have a hard time with this. Don't feel like you need to kind of invent an answer. But basically, telling us something in terms of a book, a movie, a TV show, that you really like, that you might identify as having some sort of, magical or speculative or supernatural kind of elements to it. I'm pretty wide open in how I define those terms, so if it passes muster for you personally, then rest assured it'll pass muster for me. I expect most people who registered for a class like this probably have some interest in this sort of media, so just kind of seeing where we might have some overlap, where we all might have some common vocabulary, or where you might have a recommendation to somebody, right, of something that you really like, that someone else in the class might enjoy as well. So I'll start off. I'm Professor Chin. Just in terms of most recently consumed genre-related media, I'll say this past July 4th, I did watch Independence Day again. It's a film from 1996 that is objectively not very good at all. And if anyone wants to talk about that a little more, I can explain what I mean by that. But it's one that I watched originally as a teenager, around when it first came out. I don't think that I saw it in the theater. I think I saw it on a VHS rental from our local Blockbuster, so that's going to date me a little bit. But I think most people in this class are probably old enough, they at least remember what that is, even if they didn't firsthand ever have that experience of renting a video. But nonetheless, it's a movie about an alien invasion that happens around Independence Day. Starring actors like Will Smith and Bill Pullman and Jeff Goldblum. I just think it's a lot of fun, and I think a lot of it's wrapped up in my own nostalgia from that time period. But nonetheless, if you're into that sort of thing, kind of disaster films, kind of hokey, science fiction of that era, I think it's worth checking out if you haven't already. But okay, so again, please leave your introduction, just again, your name, your pronouns if you so choose, and again, if you have an example of some genre media that you've either consumed recently and or that you consider to be a favorite, please leave that in the comment thread. So also below this video, or maybe on top of, I haven't uploaded it yet, so we'll see what happens, but I'm planning to also include a trailer for the film Horse Girl. We are going to watch this film as a class. If we were in person, I would just spend basically a class period and a half screening it for you. Because we're in a little different mode here online, you'll look at the course calendar, you can see that it is assigned kind of like a reading because we're not meeting in person. So I mentioned this in my earlier preview email, but please do make sure you have access to Netflix for the sake of being able to watch this movie. Again, you can get a free trial account if that's kind of your situation, that you don't have it and it's not in your budget right now. Totally understood, because only for the one film, again, just if you can borrow a friend's account or do a free trial or whatever that may be, to be able to access that. But more to the point, in this post I've included a trailer to that's streaming free on YouTube. So I'm going to ask you to watch that, and you don't need to go super in-depth on this, but if you do want to leave any reactions to this trailer, what's appealing here, maybe what's unappealing here, what interests you, what kind of questions this might raise. I imagine some of you may have already watched this movie. If you have, feel free to weigh in with a little bit of your experience, just in terms of reactions. Please, no significant spoilers, because I imagine a good portion of people have not watched it yet. And as much as we're looking at it from an academic perspective and kind of for analytical purposes, I imagine a part of the fun of a class like this is just kind of consuming the media, doing the readings, and enjoying the story that they're telling. So please, no spoilers of consequence, nothing beyond what's already shared in the trailer when we're discussing that. But okay, so going ahead though to our actual syllabus for this class, the document should be available if you click in Canvas and go to syllabus. I'm going to see if I can just post a link directly to this post as well. But regardless, again, I think most of you have seen at least that earlier draft version, which again is very similar to what we have here. I'm going to scroll through. I'm by no means going to read it word for word, and I'm not going to try to belabor things more than I need to. But I do find that there's value in talking through the syllabus and just kind of pointing out things that might not be as immediately evident just based on reading through it if you're not inside my head, right? I think that things will always come up when I'm explaining it orally to you that might not be as clear just from reading it. So I'm going to scroll here, and as the other kind of main point I'll ask for in the discussion thread, not required, but if you do have questions, and especially questions you think would be sort of, for the good of the order. So not just, you personally know you're not going to be able to participate on one of the class days, but rather, big questions that just don't seem clear from the syllabus or seem kind of ambiguous. This is a great time to post those questions for everyone to see and for me to answer for everyone. It is my plan to read through the full discussion threads. I probably will not respond to every single comment, in part just because that'd be a pretty big task for me to do on a daily basis. But I do plan to make sure I read them all and respond to any outstanding questions or clear up any confusions that I see emerging from there. But okay, so if you want to switch over to the syllabus, again, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I will kind of scroll through, and it might be helpful if you have it available to you. And here we go. So this class was scheduled to meet Monday through Friday, every weekday through summer session 3. I am still holding that expectation. There'll be a very small handful of exceptions where we may not have a full-fledged discussion thread or where I designated a work day. We'll kind of address those as they come up. But in general, the expectation is I will be uploading a video lecture, or there'll be some equivalent going on pretty much every one of those Monday through Friday days. days for summer session 3. I have listed on the syllabus my physical office space and office phone number. To be transparent, I will probably just not be there. I might stop there once or twice over the course of the summer session, but I won't be holding any in-person office hours unless our public health situation drastically changes in the next little bit, and I won't be checking that phone number. So email is the best way to get a hold of me. I think those of you who are past students would agree. I'm pretty good at getting back to emails, especially during the week. I will usually have a response to you well within 24 hours, often a fair bit sooner. So please do feel welcome to email me or message me via Canvas, and I'll get back to you as soon as I'm able. For office hours, again, no in-person office hours, but I do welcome you to contact me if you want to schedule a time for a video or phone conference to talk over questions. For the general term during this time, I will be available mostly during morning times, but I can kind of work on an ad hoc basis and make a lot of times work as we need to. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about kind of how the class is meeting as we go along here. I will also note I'm tentatively planning a few in-person, not in-person I guess, but kind of live synchronous discussions to be held probably via WebEx. I'm still working out some particulars for that, and I'm going to base the number and length of those kind of just based on student interest. So I'll probably do a trial one either late this week or early next week, and if a lot of you turn out and it goes really well, then maybe we'll plan to do a fair number more of those. If no one shows up or there just isn't significant interest demonstrated, that might be kind of one and done, or I might do only one more of them, just to kind of see if that was an aberration or that's just kind of a sign of where we are with the class. No hard feelings. In general, I do feel as though because things are so kind of unusual in this online remote kind of learning environment, I know people have different commitments between work and family and access to the internet and all sorts of things. I don't feel great about making anyone here kind of live at a specific time. So if we do have those enrichment sessions, it's going to be again just for enrichment and for kind of be able to answer questions, not for credit. I won't penalize you if you can't make those. But okay, the course description, it references a number of what I consider to be fairly popular examples of fantasy or science fiction or horror or, literature or, films or whatnot that otherwise kind of capture some of these more speculative elements, but nonetheless, I would suggest also have some degree of literary merit. We aren't going to read Hamlet or Cormac McCarthy's The Road in this class. We will read the first chapter of the first Harry Potter book for next time, which I'll discuss a little bit later on. But in general, the texts do move a little bit away from that, but kind of stick with this idea of kind of genre fiction and what it does for us and what it has the potential to do. I'm going to breeze right through the learning outcomes. It's fairly standard for syllabi for classes like this, though please feel free to read them in your own time. There are 2 required texts for this class that I hope most of you have got your hands on already or else are able to get your hands on very soon. Joe Hill's Strange Weather, we're going to be reading from that starting pretty soon. So especially that one, please make sure you got your hands on it ASAP if you don't have it already. And then Adam Nemet's We Can Save Us All is going to come up a little bit later on. Again, I encourage you just make sure you've got your hands on them. The reading assignments, especially in Nemet's case, are going to come kind of fast and furious, where it's going to be a lot of pages that you're responsible for in a relatively short period of time. I think the book is a relatively easy, quick read. I don't think you're going to get too bogged down in it, but at the same time, it's the kind of book where if you're missing the book for the first, couple class periods we're talking about it, you're going to dig a pretty deep hole pretty quickly, where it's going to be hard to keep up or catch up. So yeah, please make sure you're taking care of yourself and you've got a hold of these books as soon as you're able. There will also be some books that are assigned as PDFs. I'm going to upload to Canvas. I think I have most of those readings already posted. It's a relatively small number, but those are posted in the files section of our class's Canvas site. And there will also be some student-generated writing that we're going to read as a class. So I have all of the main assignments for the class kind of laid out, and things you kind of earn credit for neatly, each with the percentages attached to them, so you can kind of read through those. I'm going to get into a little bit more of the specifics now, though, of those different graded items. So for engagement and participation, if we were meeting in person, I would be taking attendance every day. In lieu of that, what I'm asking you to do is to make sure you leave at least one substantive comment per discussion thread. So I'm going to consider the clock to start at 11 a.m. on the class day at hand. So I'm going to try to do my very best to make sure that my video lectures are always posted by that time. And then you have 48 hours from that point to be able to participate in the discussion. So there is some leeway. Again, I know life happens. It might be hard to keep track of everything, as the class kind of comes at you, and as things move quickly with all the readings. Please do your best to keep up. If you're responding within 48 hours of that 11 a.m. for that class day, you'll be fine. You'll be keeping up with what the class is asking of you. There'll usually be at least a small grace period, especially for these first few classes while we're all just kind of getting used to this system. I'm not going to necessarily, penalize you right away if you didn't, participate within 48 hours. But basically, I will remove the discussions from live ability to participate in them after kind of that 48 hours and a small grace period has passed. So basically, as long as the discussion thread is still active, please feel free to participate. Please consider yourself still eligible for full credit for that. If the discussion is no longer available for comment, that means the time has passed, so that your opportunity to participate in that way has passed. If something truly extraordinary happens, like you lose internet for the day or whatnot, and it kind of sets you back, communicate with me. I like to think I'm pretty reasonable about these things, but if I don't hear anything special from you and you just haven't participated, that's where you're at the risk of starting to lose some credit in this area. If you fail to participate in more than 5 class discussions, which means basically you've missed an entire week of class, you're going to lose 2 points for your engagement and participation score for each additional absence. And if you miss more than 10 classes, you're not able to pass this class. Summer session moves pretty quickly, 5 weeks. If you miss, 2 full weeks of class, that's a lot of class time to have missed, right? So I hope that seems fair that you would not be able to pass after that point. So with that, in terms of earning credit for the class, if you are participating in an active way, you're doing at least that one substantive comment per discussion thread throughout, you can expect to earn at least about 8 out of 10 points for that. After that point, that's where I'm going to differentiate based on quality and frequency and to just basically demonstrated effort for the comments. So if you're just kind of meeting the bare minimum, just 1 comment a day, that's, reasonable, you can expect to earn about 8 out of 10 points for that part of the class. If you meet that requirement, but then also leave extra comments, really engaging with your classmates or really showing, really great insight, or if your comments are, really just kind of rich in terms of their content, not necessarily just long, but again, kind of really showing some meaningful insight, that's where you stand to, earn the full 10 points of credit. And kind of anywhere between that 8 and 10 points is sort of up to my judgment. It's a little bit arbitrary, but I think you'll find that I'm pretty fair in that regard. So there also are going to be reading response journals where I'm going to ask you to respond to the readings with a pretty informal, just kind of write-up of kind of, your reflections on them, what they brought up for you, what you thought the most interesting elements or moments of the readings were. So there are a number of reading assignments. I'm only making you submit 6 reading response journal entries in order to earn full credit for this aspect of the class. I have put up 8 separate spaces to upload journal entries, so if you want to do more, I have had some students suggest in the past that it was just valuable to them to collect their thoughts that way. Please feel free to leave more than 6 journal entries. I'm kind of capping it at 8 just to make sure no one gets too carried away or squanders their time on something they've already earned full credit for. But there's those 8 spaces so that you can continue to do it if it's useful to you. But also if some of the early journal entries, I kind of suggest to you they didn't quite meet my expectations, or they were just barely at the level to meet my expectations, it gives you an opportunity to upload an extra 1 or 2 to make sure that you're kind of earning full credit for that aspect of the class. To be transparent, and I think students again who studied with me in the past will say, if you keep up with the journal entries, if you submit the minimum number or more, and just kind of giving me a good half page of content, you will very easily earn full credit for that aspect of the class. So there will be group-led video discussions. I'll lay out more specifics of these in a future video, because I know I'm already going kind of to my max time and probably a little bit over in this one. But basically, I'm going to assign group mates towards the middle of this week. I'm going to give a couple days in case anyone decides to drop the class or we have any other fluctuation with enrollment. But I'm going to assign groups for this, and then you're going to collaborate with your group mates to submit a video that runs roughly 10 to 20 minutes long, which is pretty wide open. It can be literally a video of you just talking into a camera like I'm doing now. It can be a more creative presentation. It can be slides that you do a voiceover narration of. Any of that is fair game. But they're going to be in response to the first two novellas or short novels, as the book suggests they are, from Joe Hill that we're going to read in class, Aloft and Rain. So you can look at the course calendar and see where those are. I lay out there at the end of this part of the syllabus just my preferred expectations for how you would submit these. My preference is that if you can just do a video and upload it to YouTube yourself and then send me the link to embed, that seems to work really neatly with the Canvas interface. If you're not able to do that, or if you're doing something that's slides that have embedded audio you want people to click on, that doesn't really lend itself neatly to that kind of format, you can also just send me the file or share that with me via Google Docs. I just asked if you're going to ask me to do kind of some of the work of uploading something on your behalf. I'm okay with that, but rather than the usual 11 a.m. kind of default due date, give it to me at least an hour earlier than that to give me some time to be able to work with that file and not hold up the class. For the communal writing project, this I hope is going to be kind of one of the most fun pieces of the class. We're going to do a project. It's sort of like those of you who've done things like the exquisite corpse, some people call it, or writing a roulette, where basically one person's going to start writing a story and they're going to hand it off to the next person to keep writing the story. And basically we're going to have 3 separate stories going where people are just going to add to that story on a day-by-day basis until we communally build a full story out of all of those pieces. I hope this is going to be fun. It's going to be sort of just a creative exercise of storytelling to kind of reflect what we're learning from this process of reading all of this work with speculative elements, but also just to see what we can come up with as a group. And I think that there's something to be said for writing in a community and seeing what we can kind of create together. So many more details to follow. But again, I expect towards the middle of this week, I'll post a schedule for that, just totally randomly assigned, of when you'll be up for submitting as part of your communal writing project that you're going to be assigned to. But okay, to motor along here, critical essays are going to be pretty straightforward in terms of just a thesis-driven argumentative essay based on what we've read in class. I'll give you more thorough instructions about that, but it's about a 3 to 4 page writing assignment. So not a super long essay, but basically just to kind of exercise those critical essay kind of muscles that I think are important to revisit each time you take an English course. And then we go into the workshop and revised drafts. So towards the end of the class, we're going to switch modes to a workshop model where students are going to submit original creative stories that they have written that include some of these speculative elements we've talked about in class leading up to that point. The version they share with the whole class, we're going to submit on a staggered schedule, and that's basically going to be the course reading for that class day. For those, I know I'm asking you to do something that's kind of uncomfortable, for many of you at least, in sharing creative work that you haven't had a chance to really carefully revise and polish. To be transparent, if you basically meet the core expectations of just submitting a draft that meets the page length requirement, demonstrates some effort, and you submit it on time, you can expect to earn full credit for this aspect of the class, or at least very close to it. If you were to miss your deadline or submit work that clearly you just didn't put a great deal of effort into, and I'll talk to you if I feel like that's the case, that you would run the risk of losing significant credit. But I think, again, students who've taken classes like this with me in the past will attest most people just earn full credit for it. It's not graded at a very strenuous level, but based on the class's workshop where we kind of discuss what is and is not working and all of that, that's when you will do a revised draft for the very end of class, and that's what I will grade more strenuously. That's where I'm looking for the effort that you actually did put effort into revising it and taking my feedback and the class's feedback seriously and seeing what you came up with there. Workshop participation, it's very similar to the regular class participation where you're commenting in discussion threads. It's just the expectations are a little bit higher for this aspect of the class. Whereas a normal class day, you'll submit a minimum of 1 comment. For the workshop participation part, you're commenting on all of the stories that have been submitted by your classmates. So most of those class days, that'll be 3 stories. Some it might be 2, but just it's a little bit higher expectation that you're giving each other good quality feedback in a timely fashion. So that's why it's its own separate grade item. So we're going to talk about all of those assignments a lot more as they come up. I want to give an overview just because I hate to have students just kind of blindsided and not realizing what the class is before we get to those things. So that's why I gave that really quick kind of talk through of everything that's going on. But rest assured, there will be assignment prompts for most of these items, and we'll talk about them more. The only real exception are the reading response journals and the engagement and participation, which are a little bit more kind of straightforward and open-ended in how you participate. But for both of those, I will give you feedback early on, and it's sort of a no news is good news situation where if you're just kind of going along meeting the expectations of the class and you don't hear from me, by and large, that means you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I'll try to give you some encouragement and some endorsement, but I might not be able to do that for everyone on a super consistent basis beyond just kind of marking a check mark to say that you've completed it. But for if you're not meeting the expectations, if you're at risk of kind of doing poorly in the class based on your performance in one of those areas, rest assured I will let you know that to give you a chance to correct fairly early on. There are extra credit opportunities. I think they're pretty clearly laid out here. So basically it's the opportunity to do some extra reading, extra writing, watch some extra media for different amounts of extra credit. Just know that everyone is eligible for up to 3 points of extra credit total. So no one can earn more than 3 points of extra credit. Extra credit is open until the very end of the semester, our last class day, although I encourage you to attend to it earlier if you think it's something that's going to be of interest to you. I think a lot of these are sort of fun options. So I hope that you'll enjoy doing them if you choose to participate in that way with the class. For late work, there will be some deduction for every day late it comes in. Again, I'm a little more strenuous about that for things like the workshop drafts and like class participation where kind of the whole class is waiting on you, right? So it's not just you. So whereas for like the critical essay, and for some of your reading response journals, giving you plenty of grace period, it's something I can do without significant burden. Not participating in the class discussion or submitting work, for the communal writing project late, that affects the whole class, right? So that's where I do have to be a little bit more strict in those cases. So otherwise in the syllabus, again, I'm not going to go over much else at any depth, but there is some commentary on ethics and plagiarism that's pretty standard boilerplate stuff you'll see in most of your syllabi. So please do review that, especially because there is creative work associated with this class. Be creative with it, have fun with it, right? I know very few of you I expect are people who have studied creative writing as your major or something you're planning to go on into graduate studies with. Maybe a few of you, and that's great if that is the case. But I like to think this is something where you have a chance to take a break from more technical writing or more critical writing. And do something fun. So take advantage of that. Be creative, do what you'd like to do with it. But okay, so scrolling through the syllabus again, a lot of it's kind of standard, policy related stuff until we get all the way to the course calendar. And that lays out, the exact due dates for readings and for written work. So for week 1, basically all you need to worry about is doing the readings and doing reading response journals. Again, there are many more readings than there are journals due. So you don't necessarily have to do your journals right out the gate. I'll be transparent. If it were me, if I were taking this class as a student, I would probably just churn out those journal entries quickly. If you wanted to, you could be done with your obligation for journal responses by the end of week 2 very, very easily. And so if that fits your schedule, if you're able, that will kind of clear you up and not have that bog you down with additional work later on. But you'll see when those group-led discussion videos are going to be due. You'll see when the communal writing project assignments start being due. You'll see where the readings are coming in, where we'll be watching some things. and then you'll see where we transition to workshop. So I know some of this might be a little bit confusing at this point. I hope we're in kind of that normal state of confusion where basically we just are adjusting in a new class, new summer session. So it's just unfamiliar at this point. That is fine. Rest assured, I'm going to clear up a lot of this as we get closer to it. But again, there's things that are really kind of bugging you or confusing you in a way that it feels hard to participate. By all means, you're probably not the only one with those questions. So please do weigh in the discussion thread below. But okay, I'm already like 10 minutes over what I said would be my maximum video time. So apologize for holding you longer in this video, but I hope it's good information. I hope that's useful to you. I really look forward to getting to know you all to the extent that I can in this remote learning environment. But I think we're going to have some fun together. So I hope that you all enjoy this class. I look forward to reading your comments below and starting to get to know you all a little bit, at least to that extent. And have a great rest of the day, and I will post another video tomorrow.